guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing the Maxx. So we're going to be doing a complete strip down of this, taking the diffs out, checking the oil, changing the oils, checking everything over, checking all the bearings, replacing the bearings as need be, probably do most of the main ones in the middle, and we'll be putting 500k in the rear diff, leaving the, I think it's 1 million or 2 million in the middle, and I think 200k in the front. I'll double check that and let you know. But just a quick shout out to a guy that I was chatting to this week in America. He's got his own channel. You might have seen him before. You might be subscribed to him. He's BARS&TONE. Nice guy, really nice guy. Having a good chat with him. If you haven't seen any of his videos yet, take a look. I'll put a link in the description. Go and check him out, subscribe, hit him up and see what he's doing with some of his cars. So let's get on with the video. Right, we're going to start by removing these all out the bottom, taking this centre tunnel off, taking these guards off, and then we'll start doing some screws at the back and start disassembling. So these are all 2.5s. Let's start removing them. Right, what I do like to do is pop all these screws back in here, and then when you put them to the side, put it to the side, you know exactly what screws are going where, as there's going to be quite a few coming out. I want to make sure I get everything back where it should be. So some people just put them to one side. I like to try and keep all my screws in the places where they're meant to be. It just makes life a little bit easier. I'll squeeze that one in there. I've got new skid plates coming for this, and new wheelie bar, because this one's bent the wrong way down now. So I believe there's one more here. Hold long screw. And this should, that's it. That all comes off as one large piece. So I'm going to put that screw back in there, put it to one side, put all these in here. So now I've got new screws coming for these as well, because these have been absolutely worn down to the max. So we'll put that to one side, and hinge pin retainer, that's also seen a bit of a pasting. So we'll pop this one out the front as well. Another big long screw that should release the front. Look at all that mud and dirt that's got in there. So it's been a minute since I've stripped this down, but these get an absolute hiding. I had to reinforce this with some plastic weld. Got a new one of these as well, front bumper mount coming as well. So because this has all been bent forwards, so got replacement for that as well. That should be here on Monday. Right, let's turn this over. Let's have a little look and see how dirty this is. Now you can already see. Look at the dirt that gets up in there. I guess a bit tad filthy. I'll pop this off. And previously I did put some some light washers, shims in there, just to take up a little bit of the slack and movement there that was moving around from the hinge pins. So just set them to one side. Right, let's get my pliers. So these have had oh, look at the state of that. Filthy. Let's just pop them out like that. Right, so I might detach the shocks. I'm going to redo the shocks anyway, but I'll leave that as it is for now. And the drive shafts stay in the hubs, so they're okay. And we will do the same with the front in a minute. Let's concentrate on doing the back. So I believe we've got to undo all these screws here, all of these, whip them all out, and we'll put them back in the case so we don't lose them. All these screws, they are all the same size, so it doesn't matter which hole they go back in, but we will, make sure I'm not missing none, we will put these back into the case. So that centerpiece out, and then it reveals another two under there. Right, so that comes off as a whole. Let's clean that muck off. So there's a bit of dirt in there, as you can see. So this is all going to get a nice clean up. Not sure if that's some grease from previously. So actually I'm going to set these screws to one side, so that I can clean that up and not lose any of them, and then I'll put all the screws back in there where they need to be. So, but we need to give that a clean up, and then now we can get out the rear diff. So we can check the bearings on here, and they could probably do with a nice, that's pretty stiff. We could do with a nice freshen up. So that's the rear diff, and this is the center diff. So I'm just going to give that case a quick clean up, and I'll be back with you in just a sec. Right, so I've got everything cleaned up. That's all nice and clean now. Cleaned all the inside of there, put all the screws back in, so I know, bosh, everything goes where it needs to go. So let's take a little look at this diff. So, okay, let's see if we can whip these nuts out here. And there we have it, one Traxxas Maxx diff. Set that to one side. Let's pop this cup off. Set that bit to that side. Slide that cup out. A little check. Got that bearings on there. Needs a little bit of persuasion. mean, with a lube up, they'd probably be, these bearings would probably be okay. This one, you can hear that. So that's definitely going to change. I'm going to change them both anyway. Going to whip these out. We're going to be changing the diff oil in here, remembering which way everything goes, and pop that out. Open these up a little bit more. Right, so just double checking what we've got on the back here. So there's a shim and an O-ring there, so we need to make sure that separate those. Carefully take the O-ring off, set that to one side, and a shim, and then we have on some gear, which seems to be absolutely perfect. So let's have a little look at the other side. Pop that out of there. That one detaches from there. Pin. Pop that out. Very, very sticky. I'm going to slide this shaft out, so just give it a complete strip down and clean. And it looks like there is right, so we've got another O-ring, we know that anyway. So let's whip that out. Sure if there's a, no, I don't think there is a shim behind there. So we have got a gasket, which is absolutely fine. So let's set that to one side. We'll give all this a nice little clean up, and then we'll start looking at putting it all back together. Right, so I've got that all cleaned up. They're ready to go. I've got 2 packs of these because I've got another Maxx I've got to do, and these are the Traxxas Maxx 4S Jim's bearings. So these are supposed to be really, really good, and they're sealed, pre-greased and all that inside. They seem very much like, look very much like the originals, and the originals are very good from Traxxas. So sort out which ones go in where, and I've got 500k here, so I've got this in front of my heater and I'm just warming it up so that it makes it a little bit more malleable. So let's crack out these bearings, and if you want to know where I've got these from, so Custom RC Upgrades. So I've got a lot of the stuff for the armour there. They do all the bearings for the armours, for the Traxxas bearings and all that. So set that to one side. Let's get the right bearings for this. So we're looking for one of those, which I believe is that one, and we also want one of these. It should be one of those. So this is a complete kit for everything on the Maxx. So you've got your main bearings for the centre, you've got your original wheel hub bearings, but I've got the aluminium ones on here for the Y-Maxx kit, so they're a different size, which I have got another kit, like steel axle CV kit, which comes with bearings. So if these need replacing, I have got some spares, but it is on the list to get some more, so I've got them in stock. So all the way down to these tiny little ones, which I believe they're in the steering bell. So everything that you need, bearing wise, on the Maxx is in there. And I think that kit, I think it's about £20. £20. So for all those bearings to do everything on your car, I don't think it's a bad deal. So let's set that to one side and look at putting this back together. So this here is not actually a shim, it's like a plastic, I don't know what you'd call it really, a bit like a seal. So not only do you have your O-ring in down the bottom, which will try and squeeze in down there. Right, so the technique that seems to work is put your thumb in there and twist it around, and it seems to seat it in. So I'll go with that. That's all good for me. So we're going to slide this pin back in, put this onto the sun gear. I'm going to drop this one, actually I'll tell you what, we'll drop that over there. Give that a little twizzle. So that's that back in there, and I think we will put we're going to put the new bearing on. So this has all been nicely cleaned up. It was very tight last time to get this on. So that's there. I'm going to slide the cup back in, and it's threaded there, and it slides through, and that will retain it in there. So give us a little buzz in, and we'll go careful. So let's give it a little nip up by hand. Yeah, that's it, we're home. Right, so everything's where it needs to be. Right, so spider gears, make sure the teeth are facing inwards. Now, whether you've got a Traxxas or you've got an Armour, it's always a good idea to familiarise yourself and get in the habit of servicing your diffs. Oh, and I've just put that one round the wrong way. There we are, see? Not making attention of my own instructions. So, that sits in there. Make sure that's, yeah, so that's married up. Make sure the little notch is open, facing upwards, and then take your next two, slide it on, and then this one, the notch will be facing down so that they interlock. Slide the gears out, finger on the top, just give it a little twist. Everything's smooth, all turning as it should, and it should look like that. So hopefully you can see that okay. So that's that part done. We can put the gasket on there. I don't think it matters whether you put it on this part. I don't think there's any specific way round it goes. So it all seems to go either way. Just make sure it sits nice and equal. And it does sit in like little recesses in there. I don't know whether you can see that. There is like little recesses where it sits in, so it sits in there just right. Right, now onto this part. So the troublesome ring. So this side, now let's see, it keeps trying to push itself up. So right, we're there for the moment. Let's go through this way. Okay, that'll hold it in. Pop this pin back in there. Throw the sun gear on the top. And we've got to watch out because our O-ring has decided it's going to pop itself out again. So I don't know if anyone else has the same trouble with these, or if it's just this one. But let's just stick that straight on there. Let's get that bad boy in. Found a nice new fresh bearing. Ah, that feels great. And we'll pop our diff cut back on. I'll do this by hand, don't want that thing yanking it out of my hand again. Right, so that is the main drive on the diff reassembled. Sun gear, everything's nice and clean. This is the diff housing, or the main body. Not quite sure what you call it, but they're all in there, all nice and clean. Everything's refreshed. So let's move these old bearings out of the way and grab our new oil. So hopefully this isn't going to explode everywhere. We're all good. It didn't go bang. Brand new bottle. And I picked this up from my local hobby store, which is TJD Models. And it's heading out from Dartford out towards Brands Hatch. So if you're local in the Kent area, you probably know it. So let's see how tough this is going to be to get out. Oh yeah, the heat's done it lovely. So that's coming out there. Really nice. We'll just give that a little turn. I'll push that down. Work that in. Super sticky, this stuff. We're going to bang a little bit more in there. Get down to the sides. Be careful, we don't want to overfill it. It's like treacle. It's cooling down a little bit. It's thickening up. Let's work some of that round and in. You can hear it. I can feel it getting tighter. So the idea of using this 500k, whoops, pop that on in a minute. is to stop it diffing out. So I have upped this before. I think I put it up, I'm not sure what's in there, I think it's 10,000 in there, and I think I put it up to 100,000 or 200,000, and it's been alright, but I've seen a few people put the 500k in there, and it just locks the back up a bit more and lets you kind of slide the back out, as opposed to it cocking a wheel and then diffing out and flipping the truck over. So hopefully this will do the trick. But anything though, innit? Trial and error. So with all your trucks, you should know your trucks inside out. The main part that makes your truck move is the diffs, the motor, the gearing. So you need to service it on a regular basis. So the more you learn and know how to take these apart and work on them, the better it is. So let's make sure I push that down, turn that around a bit more. I'm trying to lift those gears out. Fair. So it's like glue. And we'll just have one more little squeeze. But yeah, if you're using the really thick stuff, really good idea to put it in front of a heater. You know, leave the lid off possibly, and that should stop. That should stop it wanting to kind of open itself or pop and explode everywhere. But it didn't, so that's okay. I'll just put this gasket back on. Get that seated. So that's 500k in there. It is nice and thick, and we'll go and slap this one on. Make sure all the holes are lined up. They are. So pop a couple of screws in there. Start this off by hand because I don't want to thread anything. Give this a little buzz down all the way, but just enough to get it where we want it. Just as it kind of knits, let it spin round. That's it. I just want to check that that's meshed up, which it is. So now I'm going to go and knit this down by hand. I like to try and do one side, other side, working the kind of crisscross pattern if possible. So you don't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, but obviously you want it tight, you don't want it coming loose. But not over tight because you don't want to strip out the plastic. So just double check. Yep, everything's still moving. It's a lot tighter. So just make sure my grub screws are done up on their cups. Yep. Get any excess 500k oil off the bearings. Not that I think it will be a problem, but we're going to be putting some marine grease in there. And that is the rear diff all done. So that's ready to rock and roll. Now to move on with the centre diff. So got to get past that shaft. So maybe take that all out in one go. Right, so we've got a pinion on the end, a bearing, which feels very, very rough. So let's take this pin out. Now, put this one as well. Oh, that one's okay. And then on the other end, we've got this little shaft here that goes into the main drive shaft. So that's held on with a grub screw, and then there's a bearing behind it. So we want to pull off. We want to pull off this one. It's very tight. There we are. So, and now we can release this bearing here, which is stuck like before. Not too bad, sounds a little bit dry, but that's your main diff. So your centre diff. So don't really need to take this out. It's got 2 million in there, it's basically locked up, and it doesn't, I don't feel that it needs changing. It's very much like chewing gum or like plastic, and yeah, I've already done it once. I've added a bit of extra stuff in there, and it was pretty damn clean. But we'll pop it open anyway. We'll just have a double look, double check. Swap over. From that 500k, everything's sticky. Right, let's pop this open, let's have a quick look. Ooh. So, wow, that is so thick in there that you've still got the shape of the top sun gear. And it's just, yeah, it's like it's like blue tack. But let's just scrape that out. Let's put this to one side. That's that's basically clean. So let's pull this out. Let's get some of this gunk out. Right, so that should do it, and that's what we're left with. So a nice little ball. So I should have a little tub of 20 million, which goes in the middle. And yeah, that's pretty solid. So let's pop these gears back in first. And we're going to throw that one in. So make sure that that's spun round, get that seated. That's all moving around in there now, and I can actually physically move that by hand. Pull out any excess that's just thrown up. Right, now to the fun bit. Look at this stuff. So we get roughly a bit the same sort of size as what came out. That's roughly that sort of size. And we can stuff that in there. So I want to see whether this will turn and whether it will work it in. Cool. Yep, so it is pulling it down, which is what we want. Right. Okay, so we have got that in. As you can see, that's all in there. And I gave that a twist and it's pulled it round underneath. So now that will leave us some space to get this back on the top. So make sure our holes are lined up. And we'll have to do some pushing here, as you can hear. Right, so let's pop a couple of these in. Oh, let's try this one. There's probably some of you going, oh, you should have cleaned it all out, you should have soaked it all. And if you want to clean all yours out, everyone has their own methods and way of doing things. This is the way I like to do it. Go around, make sure everything's tight. Make sure that that's pulling that sun gear into them teeth. Past all of that. So let's just double check. So one set of pliers on one end, one set on the other. Just want to see whether this will turn. Yep. Right, so yes, that does move, which means it's nice, it's all meshed in there. Just make sure that we are all nice and tight. And that is that part done. So that is the centre diff. So strip down, some fresh gear in there. So that's 20 million in the middle. Now we've got to do is just clean up these other bits. That's that. And clean up this other one. Oh. Right, so that's I've just found I'm missing a tooth. You see that? I'm missing a tooth off of there. Right, so a good bit of luck that I did pull this out, because now I need to order up one of these. So, and there is a little bit, some of them other ones on there are a bit damaged. So I'm glad I checked that. And that's going on to, so when that's sitting in there, that's driving that rear, this rear one here. So let's just double check and make sure that we're all good. And all the teeth on there are absolutely fine. It's funny because it doesn't skip it. But what we will do is we'll get another one of those ordered up. We'll change the bearings out. It's easy enough to get to the bottom of this. So we'll put it back together, get a new one ordered up. We've got new parts coming for this, new skid plates at the bottom and anyway. So when I go to put the new ones in, I can change that out at the same time. So let's see what bearings we need. One of those. And one of those. Oh. So we've got two there. These can all go back in. So on this end, these are both the same size, and then we've just got the one down here. So let's put that one to one side. As you notice, I keep one side of the diff stuff that side, one side keep over there. That way I know what's come off of what side. So that's first bearing on. So we'll move that to one side, that one. Slide this one on. That's it. And I believe that goes behind there. And we've got a pin in there. Right, let's just give this pin a little clean. So that goes onto there. We've got the input drive in there with the little grub screw, and then we're, oh, that's the tiny one. So teeth on that are good. This would be the rear drive shaft, rear diff pinion. So, right, we've got that. Let's move some of these tools out of the way. Old bearings. And in there, we need to give that a nice little clean out because that's a tad filthy. Right, let's just grab one more little bit of tissue. Make sure everywhere where the bearings are going to sit is clean. And we're safe in the knowledge that everything is clean and tidy and where it needs to be. So let's try this the reverse way. Should probably pop the front off when doing this, and then just make sure that that bearing there is right, that sits on the pinion. Just make sure it's sitting in the recesses where they need to be. Right, cool. So that's in. We'll throw this in. Funny because that broken tooth didn't affect the performance of this thing in the slightest. That's where the bit is. Yes, what we're going to do now is we're going to put a little bit of marine grease. So this is great, so it helps repel water, keep all the nasties out, lubes it up at the same time. I know I'm going to be changing that pinion, but I'd rather have the stuff in there and then be able to pop it out and get it back in later and do it again afterwards. So, well, let's whip that out. Let's make life a little bit easier. Let's smear that around. And put some of that around there as well. Right, so that's that part done. Now we need to do is the front. So basically the same process. We'll undo these screws here, we'll lift that cover off, and then we'll start opening up the front diff. Right, so in order to take the front off, I needed to pop this back on because there is a few screws from the top side that need to be done. There's two that come down very close at the front, down to about here. I did undo these two screws here. They didn't need to come out, to be honest, from underneath, so they could go back in. But the two front ones, they're the only two that are flathead. All the others are exactly the same size and they're all button head. So everything else on there and from the underside, the top side, they're all button heads apart from the two that are right down at the front, which I'll show you. So yeah, looking at the inside case, as you can see, in there we've had water get in and it's a bit rustified. So it's looking a little bit nasty in there. So, but I think that's off of, it looks like to be if we pop that out, should be able to slide this forward. Yep. So it looks like the shaft, there's some little bit of metal scraping, so I think it was this end. There's been something got in there and it's been scraping around. So that, I believe, is what's been going on in there. But I mean, the bearing feels alright. The other bearing feels alright. And we've got all the teeth on the pinion, so that's a good start. But we'll change both these bearings out. We're going to give this diff case a clean so I can put all my screws back where they need to be. So I'll be back with you in just a minute. Right, so that's all cleaned up, everything's done what we need to do cleaning wise. So pop this pinion off. I've given that a clean up in there, so that was all rough and dirty. So pop this one off, just checking the teeth, that's all fine. This bearing looks well rough. I think the majority of that is just dirt, but we're going to change it out, and then wow, that's probably what the grinding was then, because this bearing is seized. It's not turning. So the one on the back there, it goes to there, that's completely seized. So we'll keep those to one side. Get a little bit of tissue. Just make sure we give this a wipe over. And we'll give this all a nice clean up before it goes back in. That's well filthy. So yeah, probably doesn't help that that bearing was seized up. I'll just make sure we give everything a nice little wipe. We'll spray it down with some GT85. So let's get into the diff. So the bearings feel fine. They feel absolutely fine, but let's whip those off. And I've just had a look as well for the price of it comes as a set for the rear ring gear and pinion, and it comes in at £17. So you get a ring gear for the rear diff, and the pinion that goes from the centre diff to the rear, yeah, £17. So I had a quick look at the price of that. I've ordered it, so that should be here early this week, hopefully. So let's just pop that one to this side. There's a little bit graunchy coming out. So this looks a bit wet. It's because I sprayed it all down last night, because I was going to be taking the car out possibly in the snow. We had no snow, we just had rain. It was just a horrible day, so I didn't bother. If I can, I might take it out tomorrow, or a car out tomorrow. Now that bearing, that is super tight. I mean, it does turn, but yeah, I'm not happy with that one. It's not very good. Right, let's pop this one off. Let's pop this one off, see what this is doing. That one's spinning around, you can hear it sounds a little bit rough. I'll probably clean that up and it would be okay, but we're going to replace all those. So let's just give this a quick wipe off. And I've just been checking the manual, and it says in the front anything from 10k up to 100k. Now I was thinking of doing 100k in the front, but I'm going to go somewhere in the middle, so I've opted to go with 50,000 at the front. It does turn, so I know I did change or put some oil in here before. I just can't remember exactly what I put in there. I've got a funny feeling I put like 30,000 in. But I mean, the front's been alright, it's absolutely fine. I mean, the whole thing's been okay, but yeah, let's get it changed out. Right, let's crack this open. So you see it's a bit looser than the other one. So let's dive in and pull this apart. Yeah, still quite thick. This will come out in one piece. And then we got that one. Yeah, so I'm going to give all this a nice little clean up, and then I'll be back with you in a minute. Right, so I've cleaned up the main ring gear. New bearing on there, because this one is absolute, it does move, but it was absolutely solid. It's freed up a little bit now, but yep, not happy with that. I've reassembled, cleaned and reassembled all of this. So new bearing in there, cleaned all the hub up, the cup, that bearing. I mean, you can hear, maybe you can hear it, sounds a little bit dry. And then this little transfer pinion, so drive shaft pinion, it's got new bearing, and cleaned everything up because it was all a bit rusty. Now it's all moving nice and free. That's what we want. And that back one was completely seized up, so that's no good. And then the little one, yeah, it was moving, but it's not as free as the other one. So that's all back to, you know, like new again. So let's throw in some of this. So we're going in with a bit of 50,000. It's a little bit cold. Let's see what we can get in there. Squeeze it in the corners. Get it right down into the bottom. Right, so we've got a nice dollop in there. Put my finger on there to give it a little turn. We'll work it in. Definitely a lot freer than the back end, because the back end's 500,000 and this is 50,000. It's still very sticky. Let's give it a little wipe. Work that in there. So we're just going to throw a bit more in around the corners. And that should be us. Right. Let's line this up and pop this one on. So I didn't show you the full clean down and assembly of it all, the front, because it's exactly the same as the rear, and you don't really need to be seeing the same thing over again. Right, so I just want to have a little check. Yep, that does feel a little bit tight. I think I must have put 30,000 in there before, because this does feel a little bit stiffer. So I've got the chuck very loosely, so then I can nip it up by hand. It's amazing that this was missing a tooth on the back, yet it wasn't doing anything untoward. It wasn't doing anything different. It was still driving perfectly. There we are. tighten that up. It was still driving, absolutely perfect. Had no issues. You know what I mean? It just hasn't been serviced in ages, so it needed doing. Right, so now we're going to throw some of this grease. This time we're going to put it in the bottom. And we'll dollop that in there. So, where's our shaft? Make sure the end of this hasn't got no metal bits in there. Give that a clean up. Give that a little blowout. So that slides on there. This one slides back into there. Let's make sure that it. So make sure that the bearings are sitting where they're supposed to be sitting, and then you can drop the diff straight in. So drop that straight into that grease. Lovely. And we'll just put another little dollop across this side. What I do is I just kind of throw it all around in there and pack it all out. Well, pack it out to a certain extent, not too much. Just smear some of that up into there. But that'll also help with the water. So if you're running in wet conditions and water and stuff like that, it's very good to help seal your diff housing. So get that from TJD's. It's called marine grease. It's blue. Really good stuff. Can't recommend it enough. So now what we got to do is reassemble all this back on there, and then we can start putting the car back together. But I've only loosely done these screws up at the back here because we need to change that pinion in the back, and I want to do all these shafts, clean all these shafts up, these pins, sorry. So I mean, these ones are proper grimy, so I'm going to take all those out, give those a clean, and give it all a nice little wipe up, put all this back together, and I'll speak to you in a minute. Right guys, so I didn't want to bore you with putting everything all back together because it all goes back the same way that it came off. So all the screws back in here, getting these diff cases back on. These back ones here I just nipped down because this has got to come off to replace that pinion. I've put this cover back on here, that's on loosely because that's got to come back off again, just to show you on the front that the screws you need to take out, actually you don't need to remove them two, but there's two, let me grab me tool, there's two, one there, there's another one down there, and then there's one right down the front and another one right down the front down there. So you just have to make sure that, you know, you see them, you want to get it out, you make sure you undo those four, and then the case will come off. But other than that, I mean, I'm just going to whip this cover off here, just double check that that's all fine and dandy. I did have it off a little while ago, double checked it and everything was fine. But I'm not going to put the skid plates back on because I've got new skid plates coming, new wheelie bar and new front bumper mount, and the new screws to go in the bottom. So there's no point in me putting those back on. I know they'll stay there, I'm not going to lose them. When you do come to putting these hinge pins back on, I mean, if you've got one of these and you've already taken it on and off, you'll know which way they go. But these the plastic cover that goes on and holds the hinge pins there, make sure that the the cutout holes are at the bottom. So same on the front, same with the back, because one, when you slide it on, it makes it nice and easy, and secondly, don't get anything sitting in there up against the hinge pins, so any water or anything else will fall out the bottom and just disappear, and off it goes, rather than having it the other way round and then you get water and stuff all sitting in there. As you can see on this rear diff, where they've had the grease in there and kind of just nipped it up, you can see a little bit oozed out the sides, which is good. And what they'll do is they'll just stop any water and help against nasties getting in there. So this still needs a little bit of a clean up. I'm not going to bore you with all of that. I need to wait for the other bits to come in, and then I can finish off or do the second part of the video with the new parts on there, and get this nice and clean and get it all ready to go and get it dirty again and smash the granny out of it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. This same sort of thing applies to any car, whether it's Armour or Traxxas. You know, get familiarised with your car, get familiarised with your diffs, take your diffs out, strip them down, just have a look, see how they work, see what's, you know, what's going on with them. Check the amount of oil that's in there from when you first got it. Just, you know, keep on top of it, the maintenance. You know, once you've run, I don't know, had 10 runs on it, or 10 sets of batteries, or 20 sets of batteries, you know, set yourself a thing. It does say in the book what's best to do. You know, service them, take them out. It's the thing that makes the car run, and if they're not running right, then the car's not going to run right. So stay on top of your maintenance. It doesn't take too long. I suppose what's this done? Stripped, mind you, these Maxxes are really nice and easy to work on. So, you know, case off the bottom there, some screws, bosh, and they all come out really nice and accessible. What's it taken? Couple of hours, all 3 diffs, and if I didn't have to put those, if I could put those beats back on, it'd all be back together and I'll be able to go and run it. So found a little issue, that's it, we've got that bit ordered up, that's going to be coming, we'll get that sorted. That takes what, 10 minutes, undo those screws, pull that out, change that pinion, put it back on. You know, it's nothing. These are so nice and easy to work on. I'm going to leave this like that for now. These are all the old bearings, so they can all go in the bin. But as I said at the beginning, check out BARS&TONE. He does some really good stuff. He does some really good skate park jumps and reviews on the Craytons and the Typhons. He's looking at possibly getting a Maxx as well. He wants to start doing some stuff with a Maxx. He has got a big following, but if you haven't seen him already and you don't know, then have a look, hit him up. You know, he is good, he is interesting. He started doing live feeds now as well. So hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the bell, share, and I'll catch you soon.